Hey guys, it's Cameron review for the season finale of Celebrity Big Brother 2, and as expected, I was not really all that excited for this finale. You guys know I have not really been the biggest fan of this season. I think it's been kind of slow and dull, and we just haven't really had a lot of really great players, and especially this final five is less than stellar. There really wasn't anyone that I was like really rooting for except for Kandi. And I really did not know how things were going to play out moving forward, and this was an alright finale at the end of the day. This actually broke the curse where the seasons I don't like of Big Brother have really good finales, and the seasons I do like have pretty awful finales. This one was straight down the middle for me. I didn't think it was a good finale nor a bad finale. It was an all-right finale. There were definitely things to like about this finale, but just at the end of the day, I thought it was a bit overlong, and I think there were definitely things that we could have seen more of, and ultimately I think it's just due to this cast, which I'll get more into towards the end, but let's just jump right into it. So as we know, we had the final five, Dina, Kandi, Tamar, Ricky, and Lolo. They all battle it out at this HOH, and Ricky actually ends up winning, which was very surprising to see. I was not thinking that Ricky was going to pull out the win here. I did not really think like Ricky had much of a chance, but he actually does win this HOH, and it's unfortunate because the second he won, I knew that Kandi and Dina were pretty much done for, and those two, for me, out of the final five, were the most deserving. If either of them would have won, I would have been very satisfied. Even though Dina didn't really do a lot in the game, she was part of, sort of the alliance with Kato and Tom and things like that, and, she definitely did have some really good jury management. And then Kandi, I mean, the work that she did, with Tom, that alone, I think, could have gotten her the win, but I knew the second that Ricky won that they were pretty much screwed after that, and they were not going to be able to come back from it. And then, of course, the veto plays out, and we very quickly get to it, and this just shows kind of like how dead the house was. Like, I've heard from many people that the feeds have never been this dead. Like, things have never, the final five has never been just this uninteresting, and it just shows the lack of conversation going on within the house. The fact that we cut from the HOH to the nominations to the veto, there was really nothing in between there, and that was something that I was very surprised about. You would have thought in a 2-hour finale we would have seen something more going on, but we really didn't, and that was really weird, honestly. I was not expecting to get basically nothing in terms of footage for them to show, minus the competitions, but we get to the veto, and I actually really did like the way this veto was done, with it being like dark and them having to remember certain things from like other house guests. That was a really cool idea. And we see Lolo ends up winning this veto, and that was the one person that I really did not want to win. I was really hoping that there could be a situation where Kandi or Dina win this veto, one of them are taken down, and then Lolo ended up going up, and Lolo was sent out the door, because out of the five, Lolo is definitely the most undeserving. I don't think she should have been there, honestly. I think the only reason she was there is because she won that HOH, and look, sure, she may be a little bit better than she was in the earlier weeks of this game, but that's probably because A, production intervened, B, she knows that she is on TV, and she's trying to kind of downplay what she's doing to act as if this is how she was the entire time, which is absolutely not the case. But anyway, she ends up winning the veto, and we get this little thing where she's kind of conflicted over what to do here, but we pretty much knew how this was going to go. She ultimately doesn't use it. I don't know why she was ever confused. I mean, you have your two allies, Ricky and Tamar. You're not going to put them on the block. Like, these three have been in an alliance pretty much since day one. There was no possible way that she was going to take one of them off the block, and I don't know why she was ever conflicted with that, but she doesn't end up using the veto as expected. And from there, we then get our first eviction of the night, which, as expected, it is Kandi, who I think was very gracious about this. I think she definitely did do a really good job in the interview, but I was very saddened to see her go. Kandi was someone who, I said it before, in a regular season of Big Brother, she could have been amazing. If this season was, 90 days long, like a regular Big Brother season, I think she would have been an incredible player. I think she could have completely dominated this game. I think her and Tom would have steamrolled to the end. And unfortunately, though, not the case. And look, a lot of people are trying to say, oh, she didn't do enough. But again, she was trying to play a different game of Big Brother. Unfortunately, circumstance-wise, it just didn't work here. And it just ultimately, I think, affected her gameplay. She just simply didn't do enough in those first few weeks. And again, I'm not really going to blame her because I think she was thinking that she was going to stay quiet and then eventually rise up in the ranks a little bit and try to stir the pot. Unfortunately, it just did not work out for her, and that's why she is sent out the door here. Wasn't really all that surprised, but considering this was, for me, the person I really wanted to see win the game, it was definitely disappointing to see her go, for sure. So before I get to the Final Four, let me just talk a little bit about this whole Anthony Scaramucci bullshit, because I don't know why they did this. I mean, we already know that this was not a twist. We know for a fact that this was absolutely not a twist, what was going on, and that this just shows, just how dumb some of this season really was. The fact that they're still trying to convince us that Anthony Scaramucci was a fake house guest, that he was foretold to be there for 6 days. This was not something that was, happens. This was not something that just happened suddenly. This was, in fact, something that was premeditated. I just don't believe it. I really don't. And the fact that they're trying to shove that down our throats, I think shows even more that this isn't real, that they're clearly trying to cover up him walking out. His responses were good, but again, I attest that to him having a really good PR agent and him basically being told what to say. I mean, this is Anthony Scaramucci, someone that worked for the president at one point. I'm pretty sure he's being told what to say here. He's trying to cover up him and CBS, they're trying to cover up what he really did. But again, it shows how little is going on in the season when Julie literally asked him a question about the election. I mean, I don't know why that happened here. I don't know what the point of that was. To me, it seemed like they didn't get enough of that with him that they got with Omarosa last season, so they're trying to get something out of him, and I don't know why they did that. I thought it was really dumb. I didn't really see the point of it. There was so much other stuff we could have shown within this finale, and the fact that we focused so much on the Mooch and the fact that he, wasn't a real house guest and things like that, I think that it has been exhausted pretty much since you introduce it, and I don't know why we need to go back to it. Again, his interview was just kind of awkward. I don't really understand why it was here. I get it that they were trying to be like, oh, he's here, he's not going to vote because he's not a real house guest, but I just see it more as them trying to cover up that he quit. And I'm sorry, you're not going to convince me otherwise. The big storyline of last season is that there were a bunch of house guests that quit. Meta and Keisha both quit. So they were clearly trying to cover their asses, and that's why this twist was implemented. Again, I've gone on about it long enough. It's dumb. I don't know why it's here, and I really wish that they would stop trying to shove that down our throats, because it's very obvious what's actually going on. With that aside, though, let's get to this Final Four, because once again, the HOH was just very, very long here. It wasn't, I think, as painfully long as the one last year. That one really dragged out with the text messages and everything. It's a cool idea, but it just is so tediously long. This one was similar to that, but in concept, I think it was actually a really cool idea where they got these mini versions of the celebrities to say, three things about themselves, and one of them was incorrect. Again, similar to what they did last year, but it was different in terms of the setup and things like that. The way it was done, I thought the questions in general were just way too easy, especially ones like with Ryan. Did he play in as many competitions as Jonathan? Absolutely no, he didn't. I mean, Jonathan was evicted before Ryan. Obviously, Ryan did not play in as many competitions as Jonathan. Stuff like that. It's like a no shit thing. I don't know why they had to make these questions so easy. I think they really could have challenged these house guests more. But the tiebreaker happens. It comes down to Ricky and Tamar. And let me just say, Dina, I really love Dina in this game, but she is not good in competitions. I mean, I can say that right now. The reason that Dina did not win, and the reason why Dina, I don't think, ever won a competition is simply because she's just not very good at the game, and I think a part of her has accepted that, but she's a very likable personality and things like that, and that's one of the reasons why I never tried to be too harsh on Dina, because I always got the sense that she enjoyed her time, she just was simply never good at the game, and unfortunately that's not going to change. Maybe if they had like another month, maybe that could have changed, but unfortunately Dina is just really not good at the game, and this competition very much does show that. But it does come down to Ricky and Tamar. One of them is going to be the final HOH, and they go to the tiebreaker. I don't know why Tamar answered such a low number. I don't know what that was about, but Ricky does end up winning this final HOH, which again was very surprising to me. I never really thought Ricky had that much of a shot heading into this final HOH, or even heading into the one before that. But he does, in fact, get this. We then get to his final decision here, which was a little bit shocking. You think that maybe he would have gone with Lolo, possibly Dina, thinking that he could have beat them. I actually thought that he would have picked Dina, because I really thought that, you know, nobody really thought that Dina could win over them. But he decides to go with Tamar, which I think is going to be a huge mistake looking back. I was honestly very surprised about this, and especially was Lolo. I mean, I don't think anyone was as surprised as Lolo was about this. Lolo and Dina are the last two people evicted, and while Dina was, similar to Kandi, very gracious about it and very happy with the time that she had there, which also, you know, her, like, goodbye speeches were extremely long. You know, her kind of campaigning in front of the house guests, it was very long, and I did like the moment where Julie's like, oh, I would have played music if you would have gone on any longer. Like, I thought that was really funny. But again, it's like, why do you even care? Like, you have like an hour and a half. Like, what are you so worried about? Why are you so crunched on time? Like, there's so much other stuff that you know, you could have cut out. Like, we didn't need that Mooch interview. If you would have cut that out, then you probably would not be as worried about timing. I mean, it says a lot about, you know, what they were concerned about with this finale. But either way, the two of them end up leaving. Lolo has never been this fired up in a while. You see that she is very upset that Ricky didn't take her. She even goes as far as to say that the money that he might receive isn't even that much, which is completely hypocritical, because if you've been watching the feeds and really been paying attention to Lolo's game, her biggest thing, the thing that she's been using to really get people on her side, her whole, like, motivation is that she's needed this money for the Olympics, and that she needs this money as badly as possible. So now hearing that money wasn't even that much, it just shows how hypocritical, and just, I think, just how... Just in general, how much of a sore loser she really was. And to say that she was a bitter juror would be insulting to bitter jurors. I mean, I haven't seen someone this bitter in quite a while, especially the second that she came out, the fact that she was so pissed about it. I liked seeing, but at the same time, it being Lolo, it wasn't really something I enjoyed watching. But either way, those two are the last two evicted. Then, of course, we do get the jury to come out, and they do question Ricky and Tamar, and this is really what I want to talk about, you know, how this really worked out, because this was a very unlikely final two for me. I never would have imagined that, even in the second week of this game, that Ricky and Tamar would be the final two, but here we are. Ultimately, I think Tamar did a much better job with answering questions. Ricky was, basically all of his responses were very short and very brief, and I think Tamar just did a much better job with saying, like, oh, I was a fan of the show, this was something I always, you know, really enjoyed and things like that, and I've always wanted to be on Big Brother. So you could definitely see her passion. With Ricky, it just didn't really seem like he cared. He gave very, like I said, short answers, and in a jury that's just not gonna fly, you want to try to be as concise as possible, and I think Tamar just did a much better job with that. But this was a very disappointing part of the episode for me, because usually we get all the questions here. For some reason, Julie cuts them off. We only get to hear Ryan, Tom, Natalie, and one other person give their questions, and none of the rest of the jury gets to, which was very surprising to me. Again, especially knowing that you have that 2-hour runtime, I really don't know what was keeping them from doing that. I don't know why she had to cut off all the questions, because it really just didn't amount to much of anything. It's not like there was a lot, there was a lot more going on. I mean, all we had left is, we cast the votes, we have a little thing where we ask the jury some dumb questions, and then we go to who won. And I don't know why they had to skip over the questions like that. But going back to the jury itself was very low energy, I noticed. Nobody really seemed all that into it, except for maybe Ryan Lochte. That was the only person I felt like had some sort of energy. Jonathan Bennett as well, but like Jonathan Bennett just naturally has energy. The only person who seemed enthusiastic, that actually seemed like they wanted to be there, was, say, Ryan Lochte. Everyone else just seemed very, like I said, low energy and bored, and I don't know if that attributes to just how kind of blah this season has been, and that this cast in general just has not been delivering as much, but I just didn't really get the sense that a lot of the jury wanted to be there. Just in general, I wouldn't say they were bitter necessarily, they just kind of seemed bored and uninterested. And it didn't really seem like it cared to them who ended up winning. But, again, the questions that Julie asked them, I didn't really think were particularly all that interesting. If anything, I liked last year's a lot better because, we got that really great segment with, like, James and Brandy, and it just showed how little was actually going on. Like, Natalie revealing the power of the publicist, I mean, great, but that did not impact the game at all. And that's one of the biggest problems with this entire season, is that there were all these twists that they tried to add that just didn't really add anything into the game. I'll get more into that when we get to my thoughts on this season overall. But there just wasn't really a lot to question. They had some stuff with Jonathan and Ryan and Joey, which it was cool that we got to see like those three together. But again, I just wanted more, and I didn't really feel like I got what I wanted from this finale overall. I didn't really feel like I got those questions that I really wanted. I didn't really feel like I got to see some fun stuff with the caster, which we usually do get to see in these longer finales, and just didn't really get to see much of that here. But of course, we do come down to it, and Tamar ends up winning Celebrity Big Brother 2, which, look, I don't personally think that Tamar is deserving of this win. I don't really think many people this season are, but in terms of the final five, she was definitely one of the people that deserved it more than most, for sure. I do think she did a little bit more, and it is cool to see simultaneously, one, the first black winner of Celebrity Big Brother 2, but also them avoiding that curse where, the person that, like, walks in first to the house automatically, doesn't win the season. Like they're already cursed like the second they walk in. I'm glad to see that curse is not a part of the show. It's always been a really dumb thing that's happened, and I'm glad to see that we've kind of like moved past that. But regardless, I think ultimately, like I said, the reason why Tamar won over Ricky is just because she answered the questions a lot better. She exuded a lot more enthusiasm and passion into the game, where Ricky, it just felt very manufactured and just really just uninterested. Didn't really seem like Ricky had much to bring to the table, and ultimately, I don't really think he did. Ricky had some potential in the beginning of this game when he wanted to talk about how he wanted to stir the pot, but other than that, he didn't really contribute to much. Like, sure, he was in the alliance with Natalie and Lolo and all of them, but at the end of the day, he just didn't really do a ton, so I think ultimately that's why he didn't win. And you could say the same for Tamar, but here's the thing. Tamar was able to stay out of a lot of the drama. She was never really a huge target. The only time she was on someone's radar is when Tom was coming after her, so I will absolutely give her that. And there definitely were things that Tamar did, especially her dancing when Tom left, and her just outcrying that Tom is the devil and that we can't befriend him and things like that. Those are things that I think, for me personally, would have precluded her of winning. But again, I would have rather her win than some of the other people on this cast, so I definitely will give her that. In terms of the nastiness of the season, she definitely was not nearly as bad as some of the other ones, so I definitely will give her that in terms of her win. But just at the end of the day, I don't really think she's all that deserving. It's cool that she's broken certain curses and that she has able to, you know, rise up the way she has and things like that. I think that is really great. It's cool that she's going to use the money to like buy her house for her and her son, and her talking about, you know, things that she lost in her life, you know, how she almost lost her life. That was a really nice moment for sure. But just at the end, and it was cool to see her mend fences, you know, with Kandi and things like that. But just at the end of the day, I think that there were definitely more deserving winners overall. And look, there were definitely various comp wins and things like that that I think could have, you know, solidified her as a really good player. But considering the stuff that she did, I just am really struggling to figure out why everyone thinks of her as this amazing player and things like that. Her social game, I really didn't think was all that great. And strategy-wise, I don't really think she was all that great either. But again, she won. It's definitely better than other people that could have gotten it for sure. Also, it being a unanimous vote was also extremely surprising to me. I would have never in a million years expected for that outcome to happen. I will say, though, I'm happy that we broke the 5-4 sort of curse. That was getting really annoying after a while, where it's like, all right, just keep us in suspense. I like that it was mainly Tamar, and again, I think that contributes to just how little of a response Ricky gave. I didn't even really get the sense that he wanted to win, so I think Tamar, in the end, definitely deserved it in that respect, and it really is cool that she got the unanimous vote, but the fact that this is the first season since Big Brother 10, which is the season that Dan won, and that Tamar got that same respect, definitely would not put her in that same conversation. I know that's a whole different sort of gameplay, and that is regular Big Brother, but I'm just saying, in terms of unanimous votes, as great as it is, I don't think Tamar should have been the person to receive it, but that's just me. So with all that out of the way, I want to talk about this season as a whole, because as you guys know, I just have not really been all that into it. And look, maybe I'm in a minority. I've been listening to people and reading tweets and things like that, and people do seem to generally be liking this season. For me, though, I just was missing a lot. First of all, I didn't really get that fun sense that I did from the cast last year. Even though the cast last year, they were not the best players. They really weren't. Some of them were pretty terrible. I still got the sense that they wanted to be there. I still got that drive from them. They still were a lot of fun to watch. This cast, on the other hand, not only did I not get that same sort of drive and fun from them, it seemed like they took things a lot more personally. They were playing the game a little too hard, and they just couldn't put two and two together that this was in fact a game. They could not come to that conclusion, and I think ultimately it just really hurt this season from being something that is supposed to be fun and is supposed to be lighthearted, and it wasn't really fun to watch. Some of it was actually kind of unwatchable. Now, again, this was not Big Brother 19 levels of uncomfortable. It was not. I want to reiterate that. But seeing stuff like Lolo and Natalie and them just constantly trashing Tom and things like that, it just became very hard to watch after a while. And again, for me, it almost did hurt this season. There were a couple things that did save it. I think Tom, Kato, Kandi, these are players that definitely showed potential. Ricky, I would even say, showed some potential. But just at the end of the day, the season was too short, and it didn't really seem like they had a lot to bring to the table. So even if the season was longer, I don't really know how much that would have changed. Also this season, it seemed like they realized the last season was too simple, and they tried to add a lot more complexity to it, and I think that really did hurt this season too, especially that first week. The show never really came back from that, with the whole thing with the Mooch, which I've already touched upon multiple times in this video even, how dumb that really was. But then Jonathan leaving and Ryan leaving after that. I mean, there were so many house guests that I feel like were just robbed of their credibility. They were robbed of possibly doing a lot more on this show, and that really did disappoint me. I don't think the right people were targeted. I don't think the right people were the finalists. Just at the end of the day, I just never really was all that into it. I felt like there could have been a lot more going on. I felt like last season there definitely was a lot more going on. I mean, hell, compare the final two to last year. Sure, Ross and Marissa were not the great, Marissa especially, were not the greatest game players, but they were pretty much at the head of every eviction last season. You know, Ross was doing a lot of stuff. There were times where Ross was a target. And sure, Tamar was never really a target, but at the same time, was she really doing a lot of damage all season? I wouldn't really say so. I would say Tom, Kato, Lolo, Natalie, maybe even Ricky, those were people who were dominating the game. And sure, Lolo and Natalie, I think, were way too personal about it. And I think that's ultimately what differentiates this season from last, is just the people that played hard played too hard in that sense. Lolo and Natalie, they were just way too personal about everything. They were very hypocritical as well. They would accuse people of doing things that they would pretty much do the second after they would berate them for it. Lolo herself, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know if she is, you know, mentally unstable, but to me it seems like she's got to have like a bipolar disorder or something like that. I don't want to diagnose her if she doesn't, but just to me, I mean, I just don't think someone like that should be in the house. It wasn't even, you know, again, I enjoy drama on this show, but there comes a point where, you know, there's certain drama that I enjoy watching. This wasn't the type of drama that I enjoyed watching, and it was honestly very hard to watch at times. There definitely were things to like about the season. Tom was a lot of fun throughout the entire show, even if he wasn't the greatest player. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Someone who wasn't the greatest player, but actually was fun to watch. That's Tom Green. Tom Green, not a very good strategist. I will definitely say that. But I do think that he did, you know, he was a lot of fun to watch. And I'm glad to see that he did win you know, America's Favorite, because I definitely would have chosen him for that. I think definitely he was a lot of fun to watch. He was consistently entertaining on both the feeds and on the show, and I liked what he did bring to the table here. Ryan Lochte was a lot of fun. You know, Kandi, I thought, showed a lot of potential. Dina, even, I did enjoy. Even if she didn't really do a lot, I think Dina was a lot more tolerable than some of these house guests. But just at the end of the day, I just was not the biggest fan of this season. There's a lot more I think we could have gotten from it. I think just in general, I just didn't really feel, like I said, that same sense of urgency that I got from the cast last year. Last year was an expedited season. It gave the cast more of a drive. This year, it was kind of a slog to get through, and I'm glad that it's over, honestly. I'm not really going to miss it. And to be honest with you, the promo for Big Brother 20 had way more life than this entire season did. I mean, seeing that cast again, it just reminded me how much fun and how much enjoyment I usually do get from this show, and that enjoyment wasn't entirely lost this season, but I just didn't really feel it as much. It definitely was a lot slower. Things did not feel nearly as good as they should have. We had players that just weren't very good here. A lot of them didn't really know the game all that well, and it is cool that someone did win that watched the show. I will definitely give them that. I'm glad that Tamar, you know, is a fan of the show and that she won for that reason. You know, I'd rather her win than someone like, say, Joey. But at the same time, I just do not feel that same sentiment that I did about the first season. So at the end of the day, I am going to give Celebrity Big Brother 2 overall a C. And that's about it for this season. I know that I have not been the most enthusiastic. I know that I have not been as into it as I have other seasons, and I do apologize for that because I do really enjoy watching the show, but this season just never really did it for me. And there were certain things that I just don't really think they ever came back from, especially stemming all the way back to the Mooch twist and things like that. I'm hoping that Big Brother 21 is, you know, what we want the show to be. I'm hoping that it is a back-to-basics season, because that's what was so good about Celebrity Big Brother 1, is that it was very back to basics in that way. And same with Big Brother 20. I mean, sure, we had other twists going on, but for the most part, it was pretty back to basics. And I'm hoping that, you know, Big Brother 21 really is that as well. I don't really know if they're going to have a third iteration of the show. The ratings have been absolutely horrendous, especially this season, and I just don't know if they're going to be able to come back from that. We'll have to see. But that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.